Welcome back to the show, Disruptors. I'm your host, Aaron Hale, and this is Point of Impact. And I must have told you every single episode that I'm really excited about the next guest. But I am really excited about this next guest. We've known each other for years through text messages, emails, and me being a guest on his podcast. But we've never actually met in person until just a few weeks ago when our paths crossed purely by chance in an airport lounge. I'm glad he said hi and recognized me because I probably would have missed him. Retired Navy SEAL Jason Redman is a New York Times and Amazon bestselling author of The Trident, Overcome, and The Point Man Planner. He's defied the odds multiple times, from a leadership failure back to redemption and respect, to getting shot 8 times, including a round to the face. He's the epitome of the overcome mindset he teaches. Today, he motivates and inspires audiences across the country with his journey of redemption and leadership through his motivational speeches, workshops, personal coaching, courses, and even a TEDx talk. He's taken the lessons he's learned and turned them into relatable content, teaching others how to be their own point man, get off the X, and overcome all. You know, it would be really hard to overcome if you didn't take that platform you're on right now and follow, subscribe, like, give it 5 stars, write a comment, write a review, and share Jason and his story with somebody you know would appreciate. These small actions make a huge impact. Without further ado, my chat with Navy SEAL Jason Redman. Jay, what's going on, my man? Welcome to the show.
Aaron, thanks, brother. I appreciate it for having me on.
It's been a while since we actually, I had to sit down and talk. There was that brief, weird interlude at the airport lounge a few weeks back. That was actually hilarious. And people don't realize that I'm Bluetooth connected to my cochlear implant, and there's like a delay between the Bluetooth connection and being able to hear around me. So when you tapped on my arm, I shut my phone off real quick, and by the time I could hear it, all that came through was former Navy SEAL shot in the face, like Jason Redman. What's up, man?
Yeah, you and I have never met. I mean, up until that moment. I mean, we did the podcast together when Ray and I were doing our podcast, but we had never actually met. And so when I saw you, I was like, man, I know this guy. I can't think of where I know him from. So yeah, I came up, and sure enough, man, I was trying to get your attention, and you weren't hearing me. And I think the girl in the elevator was confused. So yeah, it was just kind of a funny moment
that's hilarious. I try to play. I portray a blind and deaf person, but the truth is, I'm very self-absorbed and don't pay much attention to anybody else. Yeah.
You pull it off well, man. You know.
It was great. With the emails leading up to this chat. Through Sierra, your daughter, is she managing some of the correspondence, and what's going on in there? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's been pretty neat, man. I'm really I'm blessed. My all our kids have worked with us in our company over the years. My youngest helped me with my social media for a while, and then one day came to me and said, "Dad, I don't want to do this anymore." And I said, okay, well, what do you want to do? We've always told our kids they have to do something. And she said, I'm going to go get a real job. And I was like, okay, roger that, go out into the big world. And she did. She went out and she became a a waitress, which both my wife and I waited tables when we were younger. I think everyone should wait tables because you learn a lot, and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn about crappy people, you learn about good people. Um, so
That's hilarious. That's awesome that you've got the kids and the family business. Um,
yeah,
I agree
my
about.
older daughter, my older daughter took over for her sister, and she helps now with both social media messaging or messages. She helps me stay on top of that, and she helps me with my schedule. And she also, her and her husband are both big fitness and nutrition coaches. So they are fitness and nutrition coaches in my program. So it's pretty neat. And then my son, he is a DJ and audio engineer and big into video. So he helps us with video work.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Cheap labor.
Well,
No,
like, they get paid. And my
mine.
daughter, my son is a little more part time because he's in and out and doing different things. But my daughter, yeah, she's a full time employee and gets investment benefits just like any other employee.
Oh, I love it. I really too. My oldest is 12, and the twins are 4 years old. So we're going to get them to work until at least 6 or 7. But
You know
um,
what? Why are you waiting so long, man?
and well, they are big for their age. But yeah, I take the 12-year-old oldest Cameron to some of our job sites where we're doing remodels, and we'll put them to work as a sweeper, sanding, that kind of stuff. So really, it's, I think my first introduction to you and your story was right, right at Walter Reed. You went through just a few years before me, but yeah, there's the famous poster board sign, and of course, your first book, Trident, The Trident, was recommended to me, and it was so funny. I loved the story. I loved your raw honesty about personality, and it's but you've mentioned it before. It, our there are so many corollaries or parallels in each other's stories that I really connected with the Trident. And um, although I do feel like the underachiever younger brother, maybe in this relationship, definitely less mature, but uh, between getting taking shots to the face, the helmet stories. Although you were actually worried for genuine concern. I was worried about getting charged by my first sergeant for losing equipment. Uh, but could you just tell the audience a little bit about your background, your maybe career leading up to the incident. And I really do, particularly interested. I love the part of your story when you really get down to like those moments. But there's moments like the ranger course and coming to grips with I don't know ego.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like many of us, I came into the military pretty young. I actually joined the military before I was 18. I did the delayed entry program. I was 17 years old in high school and had always wanted to be in the military. I think probably like many young men had this romantic view of what the military and war is, probably driven by a lot of Hollywood movies and G.I. Joe and other things. So joined amazingly on September 11th, 1992 is when I signed up for the Navy, and I went to boot camp the next summer after I graduated high school um, with the plan to go become a SEAL, and to uh, went through boot camp, and I went through my A school, and then came back and there was a delay to get the SEAL training. So I was assigned to the headquarters for the SEAL teams on the East Coast. And I worked there for about a year waiting to go out to SEAL training. Headed out to SEAL training in early January 1995 and graduated from SEAL training in December of 95. And then came to the SEAL teams and did really well. Did really well as a young SEAL. We were pre 9/11, so there weren't a whole lot of combat things going on. I was doing counter drug stuff in Central and South America, so we saw a little bit of stuff. I mean, nothing like post 9/11 Iraq and Afghanistan, but I mean, I did get introduced to a little bit of the dangers and a little bit of the the excitement of a career in special operations. Got picked up I became an instructor after those deployments. I became an instructor, and then I got selected for a commissioning program. And in the end of 1999 or 2000, and headed off to school in 2001. And I was actually at school when 9/11 happened, which kind of changed everything. We went from a peacetime military to a wartime military. I finished school and came back as a new young officer. But unfortunately, I came back as a new young officer with a pretty big ego. I'd been in I got commissioned in my 11th year. I got picked up and started school in my 8th year. It was a 3-year program. So I've been an enlisted guy for 8 years. I was an E6 and went to school, came back, had 11 years as a new officer in 01. And I thought I knew everything, man. I graduated #1 out of my class for ROTC. I graduated with honors out of my college. And I got a big ego. I got arrogant. And I came back to the SEAL teams thinking I was God's gift to leadership. But what had happened is a lot of what I had learned growing up in a peacetime military had very much changed as guys went off to war. As SEALs went and fought battles in Iraq and Afghanistan, they began to figure out, hey, man, a lot of our old tactics, things that, we've been training with don't work on the battlefield. And they quickly adapted and changed and evolved as good units do. So I came back and all of a sudden a lot of stuff had changed. And instead of humbling myself and saying, hey, man, I don't know how to do this, I was too proud and had too big of an ego to ask younger guys, hey, man, how do I do this? Instead, I started making mistakes. Those mistakes were eroding my credibility as a leader. And then I made the big mistake of starting to drink too much. I was nursing my problems with alcohol, which then further compounded and eroded my credibility as a leader. I got known as a drunk. Not a good trait to have in a leader. Making mistakes and being a drunk usually does not equate to good leadership. So, and all of that culminated with a bad call on a mission in Afghanistan and our first deployment, my first combat deployment as a leader. And I won't get into all the details on the bad call. I mean, thankfully, nobody was killed or injured because of that call, but it did definitely damage it was kind of the final straw to my professional reputation. And there were guys who said, kick this guy out. I mean, one of the nice things about special operations is the guys have a say in who leads them and who they work with. Because if you're dangerous, they don't want to work with you. I mean, your lives depend on the guy next to you, and especially your leaders making sound tactical decisions. And I had unfortunately shown that I was not doing that. I made a bad call because I wanted to get into a gunfight, to be perfectly honest. That really is what drove that call that day. And that's a dangerous thing. I mean, it's one thing to go into a gunfight because you have to, because it's part of the mission. It's another thing to make a decision based on, I want to get into a gunfight. And there was some bad tactical decision-making that went along with that to drive that. So I basically I had to go before my commanding officer and leaders. And there were a lot of people that said, kick this guy out. But thankfully, my commanding officer believed in me and said, hey, you know what? I think this guy has potential. I just think he needs to be humbled. And that started a whole new journey. One of the punishments was they sent me to U.S. Army Ranger School. And they also basically had a official letter of reprimand, which if you are an officer in the military and you get an official letter of reprimand, it'll end your career. You'll never move past the rank you're at. It'll put you out of the military. And they knew that. What they said was, hey, this letter of reprimand is going to go in the commanding officer's safe. If you do a great job, do another round, you do a great job, you prove you're the leader we believe you have the ability to be, this letter gets shredded. If you don't, this letter goes into your record that ends your career. So, and then with that, I went to Ranger School. And I'll be honest, man, Ranger School was exactly what I needed. It was an opportunity to grow up. It was an opportunity to humble myself. It gave me an opportunity to kind of get away from the SEAL teams and be out of a combat environment, but still be in a hard environment where you're forced to lead. And it gave me a lot of time to think about myself and come to realize, I think one of the biggest things as a leader, you got to have good self-awareness. And I didn't. I thought I was God's gift to leadership, and I was anything but. I was not effectively leading myself. I was doing a poor job of leading others. And man, I was picking and choosing when I wanted to lead. I wasn't leading always. So those became kind of the principles that I built on as I drove forward and started to rebuild myself in Ranger School. Hey, number one, you lead yourself. You're on time. You're on target. Studied whatever we're doing that day. You know how to do it, and you're not trying to show anybody up. You're just trying to be the best version of yourself for whatever that evolution is. If you're called upon to lead, you step up and lead, and we lead others. And no matter what, you set the example, and everything you do, you lead always. That became my the system I put in place for my life, both at Ranger School and going back to the SEAL team. So I don't want to say I totally quit drinking, but I definitely cut way back on my drinking. And I just focused on trying to be a good SEAL and a good leader. And that really set me up for success. Came back to the SEAL teams after Ranger School, and there were a lot of guys that still didn't want me there. They, hey, that's the guy that screwed up in Afghanistan. My nickname was Rambo Red. For going down that mountain and trying to get into the gunfight. And a lot of guys weren't excited to have Rambo Red back. But over time, I won guys over, and I had a great leader. One of our great commanding officers told me, hey, people will follow you if you give them a reason to. So come back to the SEAL teams and give the guys a reason to follow you. And that was my focus. And he was right. Over time, the vast majority of the guys, and it took a while. I will say it took about 1.5 years to really earn back the trust and respect of the guys that I had been given the ability to lead. But slowly but surely won them all back, or the majority of them. I mean, you're always going to have some people who unfortunately don't want to forgive you for past sins. That's fine. Accept that in this life. If you could look yourself in the mirror and say, I've changed and I've got systems in place to lead myself, lead others, lead always, you don't worry about the others. There's always going to be haters and people that disagree.
Reputation, and especially trust, once damaged, is really hard to repair. So, of course, I understand someone's trust, especially when it comes to being in the military, where you're putting your own life in somebody else's hands. Sometimes, and when they're putting their lives in your hands, trust is the end all be all. And, that's a tough thing to come back from. When you were talking about Ranger School, and there was a turnaround point, and I really love when you talked about almost leaving the Ranger School, and I guess you were out of cycle, and dude had to go pick up cigarette butts. Was that like the rock bottom? Was that the point where you really had to face that ego grabbing and decide who you were going to be?
Yeah, no, that was rock bottom. No, I'm glad you brought that up. Sometimes for time, I'm not able to go over all those things. I mean, all that is in my book. I don't pull any punches on the mistakes I made. But no, I'd only been in Ranger School for about a week, and I had a pretty bad attitude. I was still grumpy. I saw myself as the victim. I felt like my teammates kind of threw me under the bus. I still hadn't come to grips and own the mistakes that I made. And I was a little bit bitter about being at Ranger School. And in that first week, I definitely was not playing well with others. And when we did the land nav course, I taught land nav in the SEAL teams. I'm a great navigator. I'm good at it. And the morning we did the land nav course at Ranger School, it was February, brutally cold. I'll never forget my Camelback hose froze within the first 10 minutes of us being low. And as we're launching on the course, the instructors are like, take off all your warm gear. No snivel gear is what the Army calls it. And I was like, I was so mad. I was like, this is such bullshit. Now I've been in special operations for years. Big boy rules apply. If you're cold, put your jacket on. If you're, but I had to play the reindeer games, but I was angry about it. So I trucked off into the woods to start the land nav course. It's like 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm like, you know what, man? Screw this. I'm just going to wait for the sun to rise. I'm good enough that I have the ability to knock out this whole course in just the hours of sun, with the sun up. I'm not going to go running around the dark and poke myself in the eye or, fall down. Well, yeah, no, the Ranger navigation course is long and it's hard. And if you wait 2 hours till the sun comes up, you don't have enough time. And that's what happened to me. I failed it. I didn't get all my points. So when I failed the course, when I came to turn in my nav card and show that, hey, I hadn't got all the points, the Ranger instructors just started to heckle me. And I let a lot of anger, a lot of frustration boil up. I call this weak emotional leadership. And I told those instructors where they could go. And they said, are you quitting? And I was like, yeah, I'm quitting. I'm out of here. Screw you and your course. So they said, okay, roger that. You got to go back and meet the Ranger colonel. So I went back to the barracks, and I had to meet the colonel, Colonel KK Chin. Great guy, ended up going on to the rest of his career. He retired a 2-star general, and I've talked to him several times over the years, just a great leader. And he had the foresight, when I met him, I told him, I got thrown under the bus and all this other BS, the lies we all make up about ourselves. And he kind of saw through all of that. And he said, do you want to talk to anybody in your community? And I was like, hell no. I'll be honest. I was ashamed. I've never quit anything in my entire life. And all of a sudden I quit Ranger School. I was like, my career's over. I mean, I screwed up in Afghanistan. I got guys that want my head on a platter. Now I quit Ranger School. Like, there's no coming back from this. Like, this is rock bottom. This is the end. And he was good friends with a senior SEAL leader who was a mentor of mine and probably one of the most respected leaders in the SEAL teams. And he got him on the phone and he handed the phone to me, and there was no way I could not take that call. I respected that guy so much. And he said to me, he said, Red, what are you doing? And I was like, I've screwed up too much. I can't come back from this. And, sob story. And that's where he said to me, Red, he said, people will follow you if you give them a reason to. He said, you need to get back in that course. You need to crush that course, and you need to come back to the SEAL teams and give the guys a reason to follow you. And that really became the catalyst for me. It shocked me into like, hey, man, like, you can do this. It's going to be hard. It's going to take time. You're never going to win anybody over. But at the end of the day, it comes down to you. Do you believe in yourself? Do you have confidence in yourself? Are you secure in yourself? Are you doing the things that you need to do? All that comes down to that self-leadership. And so, yeah, I hung up the phone and I asked the Ranger colonel, I said, will you put me back in my class? And he laughed at me and said, no, not only no, but hell no. He said, I'll roll you back. You'll go to Ranger School jail for a month, and then I'll class you up with the next class. And that's what happened. I had to go sit in Ranger School jail. I think at Ranger School, they call it the gulag or whatever it is. The next month, I walked around Fort Benning picking up trash. And I'll be honest, it was the best thing that ever could have happened to me, because during the day I picked up trash and I did work details, and it forced me to humble myself, because I thought way too highly of myself. I was thinking, man, I'm this, multi-year Navy SEAL. I've been in combat, I'm, you know, awards and all this bullshit. None of that matters. What matters is your leadership in the moment. So during the day, I had a lot of time to think about that. And at night, I started reading every leadership book I could find. And over that next month, I really just changed my mindset and said, okay, you're coming after this in a whole different way. And so, yeah, for a month, I went from, thinking I was God's gift to leadership to walking around Fort Benning picking up trash with a pokey stick.
Yeah, I think it's hilarious. I mean, yeah, I understand. I've been in very similar situations, but it's funny that that moment doesn't come out on the course. It comes while picking up cigarette butts, working parties, field day details. But right, I mean, you had to be humbled to becoming a better student. If you are God's gift to the Navy, to the wherever, then you're not open to learning, and definitely not open to change. I love how it was Eric Greitens, in his book Resilience, has a humility mantra that he tries to say every day. I actually repeat it to myself every once in a while, and it's a really good one to look up. But it's two sides of the coin. You've got to be humble so that you can really be open to learning, and be grateful and aware of your situation. So you start to turn those around. You had heart-to-hearts with your own commander, and then heart-to-heart with the Ranger school commander. Finally, you passed. You got your Ranger tab, and the SEAL community reluctantly let you back in, and you started working your way to building your reputation. What happens next?
Yeah, no, man, it was a hell of a journey. And I'll be honest, I'm thankful. Oftentimes people ask me, man, if you could go back, would you have not made that call in the valley, and not gone through all the, the hell of, having to rebuild myself? And the answer is no, because I would have continued to make the same mistakes I'd made. And I'll be honest, I mean, maybe I would have made a mistake that ended up getting somebody killed. I'm thankful that the blowback was really only on me. And it was exactly what I needed. So often in life, I tell people, when you're going through the hard times, when you don't get what you want and you're having to grind and figure it out or go a different direction, man, that's when you're really building what I call an overcome mindset. You're building inner grit, you're building that resilience, you're building yourself as a leader, because, you didn't have the set path that you thought you were going to have. I mean, you don't really learn. If things are easy and you're successful, if you just blast down a path and you just constantly knock down successes, you really don't learn a whole lot. You just reinforce what you're already doing, good, bad, ugly, whatever it is. It's only through failure you start having to make course corrections.
Yeah, that was something I noticed in my own career path, is that I would reach a certain point, a plateau, an achievement of some point, and say, no, I've made it, and I can sit back. And that's where ego took over, and said, well, I've reached this pinnacle, but then life would have a way of teaching me a new lesson and putting me in my place. So it happened when I graduated EOD school. All right, I got my badge. But then you get to your unit, and they're like, no. That was just you. That EOD school was just learning how to learn how to be an EOD tech. Now the real work begins. And then I it change my mindset, change that framing, the perspective, And then it was, getting that team leader certification and being the one that puts the bone suit on. And then but hopefully by this time, you learn that life is continuous change, continuous education, and that you shouldn't sit back too long. Or, and we were talking about the overcome mindset. It's like some people look right through, hardships, and some people just get plowed under by them. What are some of the things you noticed? Well, get into that, but what was the most trying part of your life? Was it before, after the injury, during, coming to grips with what had happened and how it changed your career and the whole the whole course of your life?
No, I still tell people, and I believe that leadership failure was the hardest thing I've ever been through. I mean, rock bottom in Afghanistan, before, when I thought they were going to take my trident, I put a gun in my mouth and I was ready to kill myself. And thankfully, I didn't. I think the big man above kind of knocked me and was like, "What are you doing?" And made me think about my wife and kids and what a bad decision that would be. But building myself back up and being told, hey man, you don't measure up, you don't belong here. That was really hard. It's hard to be ostracized from a community that you much about. Granted, it was my fault. I did it, and I own those mistakes, but that was really tough. And that was the hardest thing I think I've been through. The good news is, because of that journey, because I had to go through a multi-year journey of effectively leading myself and ignoring all the noise around me and just constantly driving forward. And here's a goal, accomplish goal. Here's a goal, accomplish goal, drive forward. When I got wounded, I won't say that it didn't suck. Trust me, it sucked. I mean, man, the first couple of weeks, as Aaron, you well know, you're kind of trying to wrap your head around this monumental change that's occurred in your life, both physically, mentally, emotionally. But I will say that very quickly for me, I looked back at the past and I said, listen, like, you've already been through the hardest journey you've ever been through. And the formula is the same. You're going to lead yourself. You're going to lead others. You're going to lead always. I don't care if you're in this hospital bed. I don't care if your face is blown out. Like, the formula is the same. Like, you don't get an excuse just because you got injured to suddenly lay here and feel sorry for yourself. Like, one, it doesn't accomplish anything. And two, you already kind of charted this path. So that became the path forward when I was wounded. So it made things easier, if you will. And that's what I focused on. And it was only a few days later that I wrote that sign on the door in the hospital.
What did they, do you remember what the sign said, what you put on there?
So I'd been getting told a lot of negativity, and some doctors are better than others, but doctors like to give you the worst case scenario, which I think doctors don't want to build up people's hope. So they don't want to tell someone, hey, you'll walk again, or hey, you're going to be able to keep your arm, or whatever it is. So they're always going to tell you worst case scenario, which I tell guys in the hospital, hey man, that doctor is going to tell you something. You determine many of the things that are going to happen in your future, through the decisions you make and through positivity and all these other things. So yeah, they were telling me all these things. They were telling me, hey, we're thinking about amputating your arm. They were telling me, you have no use of your left hand. All the things I had wrong with me, that it was going to take years to put me back together. And then I had a couple of people who came into the room and they were really feeling sorry for me. A lot of pity. And when they left, I just said, okay, I'm not having any more of this. There'll be no more negativity. There'll be no more pity. That's going to stop right here. And when my wife came back in the room, I wrote out the sign that said, I told my wife, nobody's allowed to come into my room with negativity from here forward. And I wrote out that sign and said, attention to all who enter here. If you're coming in this room with sadness or sorrow, don't bother. The wounds I received, I got a job that I love, doing it for people that I love, defending the freedom of a country that I deeply love. I will make a full recovery. What is full? That's the absolute utmost physically. I have the ability to recover. And I'm going to push that about 20% further through sheer mental tenacity. This room you're about to enter is a room of fun, optimism, and intense rapid regrowth. If you are not prepared for that, go elsewhere. And we signed it, the management, and put it on this big piece of orange poster board. A couple days later, a teammate took off his trident and tacked it into the bottom of the poster on the door, and it became known as sign on the door. It got people took pictures of it. It went viral. It was on the news. Earned me an invitation to the White House to meet President Bush. It has been written about in books. It's been featured in documentaries. I did not keep it because I didn't feel like it was mine to keep. So instead, we had it framed and donated it to Walter Reed, where it lives today, right in the middle of the wounded ward. Wounded warriors touch it for luck before they go to their surgeries. Yeah, I mean, I try and explain to people, the greatest gift you have in this life when bad things happen is you have a choice. No one forces you to lay there and feel sorry for yourself. That's a personal choice to do that. And guess what? It's either going to suck and you're going to be miserable with it, or it's going to suck and you're going to drive forward with it. But I'll tell you, no matter what, it sucks. You just got to drive forward. And I'll tell you what, when you're taking forward action, when you're choosing to drive forward, it makes it suck less.
It's a tough thing not to slip into, that victim mentality. Yeah, I'm injured. My life is never going to be the same. I'll never be able to do those things I used to do, or ever be able to recover, be the same person again. And then you've got, like you said, those people feeling sorry for you, feeling pity. And I remember hearing the tone of people speaking to me and thinking, I'm better than that. I can do this. Why don't they believe it? Or you don't have to talk to me like that. It was almost like somebody talking to a toddler. Oh, it's okay. You'll be fine. It's just a baby, but you'll be all right. I'm like, you don't need to talk to me like that. You don't need to feel pity for me. I want to fight this. So I mean, that's amazing that sign it hangs there today. But same thing was when I was there at Walter Reed. I was saying, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to let this define who I am. And I'm not going to. In fact, they asked me if I was going to where I wanted to retire. Like, I'm not. I don't want to. I'm saying active duty. And found other active duty, soldiers that were blind. Like, I could do it. Now, obviously, I'm not gonna defuse bombs anymore. Can't even be colorblind. But I could certainly do an admin role and teach. But it was far beyond what the tone of people's voices implied I could do. And I'm glad you made that sign, because it set the tone, it set the pace, it set that frame of mind, not just for the patients, but the visitors as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Great.
Well, you talk about in both your books, and you've got 2 books, Trident and Overcome, and a planner, the Point Man planner. And you talk about, you mentioned in both the books about a couple of your leadership mindset, getting off the X, and of course, life's ambushes, and just like in battle, everyday life has its ambushes. Can you tell me a little bit about these philosophies, these rules of thumb, these lessons you've learned from military taking to teach to others today?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody gets, you and I were ambushed on the battlefield, but everybody gets ambushed in life. We unexpectedly have bad things happen to good people all the time. We lay out these amazing plans, We meet who we think are the love of our lives, and then all of a sudden, that's not the case. And unfortunately, somebody cheats on somebody, and it ends up in divorce or whatever. You think everything's good, and you get hit with a health scare. Hey, you've got a incurable disease. Sexual trauma, emotional trauma. So whatever these things are, they're life ambushes, and they may not be the bullets and bombs of battle, but man, they are the bullets and bombs of life. And they feel just as painful as what you and I went through on the battlefield. And when they happen, they just, man, they overwhelm us. I mean, they rock our world no different than, man, a bomb going off. It blows up on our life. And the point of that attack, the point of the ambush, the point of the crisis, that catastrophic event, from military vernacular, we call it the X. The X is the point of attack. But the X is the point of the incident in your life, whatever bad thing happened. So many people in this life get stuck on that X. I frequently in speeches I give talk about the most dangerous battlefield is the one in your mind. Man, so many people get stuck in their mind. They convince themselves that they can't overcome whatever bad thing happened to them. And you're right. If you are unwilling to move past it, you never will. You are the cavalry cannot save you. You are the sole factor that can enable you to get off the X. You have to choose to drive forward. And so many people choose not to. They choose, like you talked about, Aaron, to be a victim. Oh, this terrible thing happened to me. I'm a victim. Oh, woe is me. I'll never be the same. I could never be better. And that's just not true. That's a lie. But it takes work, and it's painful to recover. No different than you and I's recovery when we came through these physical injuries. Oftentimes, the mental and emotional damage is even worse, trying to navigate through that. But it starts with you. It's a choice, and you got to start driving forward. So, most people, when they're on the X, they do one of three things. They either look back at the past and they say, I want back the world before this happened. They look to the future and say, well, this should have been my best year ever. I should have been celebrating, a promotion, or I should have been, bringing in this much money in our business, or I should have been celebrating this anniversary or birthday or whatever it is. Or the big one that most people do, they're consumed by the pain and misery of the ambush or the incident, and they look for someone to blame. And then they pour all their energy and time into blaming someone for why they're there. And none of that matters. None of it. Because the longer you sit on the X, it's like quicksand. The harder it is to get up and get off of it. And I tell people you have to build a mindset to get off the X. Life ambushes are out on the horizon. The average person will go through at least 5 major life ambushes in their lifetime. So the reality is, I tell people, you're either coming out of a life ambush, you're either in a life ambush right now, or guess what? Somewhere out there on the horizon, there's one waiting for you. You can be smart and, you can see the indicators and try and minimize it, no different than we did on the battlefield. And a lot of people don't do that. They run through life totally blind. Maybe they're in a bad marriage and they're not doing anything to make their marriage better. And their spouse keeps coming to them and saying, wow, we've just lost the love. We need to do more. We need to have date night. We need to schedule time to be intimate. We need to do this and this and this. And that person just says, oh, there's nothing wrong with our marriage. And then they're dumbfounded and amazed when their spouse goes out and has an affair. And like, okay, man, guess what? The indicators were there. You had signs for years. Your spouse was saying she was not happy. Yeah, you didn't do anything to help fix it. That's not her fault. That's your fault. We have to take action in this life to avoid ambushes. No different than we did on the battlefield. When we saw, hey, we're moving into a choke point, there's signs that there could be an ambush. We have to be proactive to try and prevent it. And I try and explain that to people in this life. So we have to have a mindset of there are ambushes out there. If they occur, we have to get off the X as quickly as possible. If we can see the indicators, that trying to mitigate or avoid them before they happen.
Yeah, so it's resilience by preparation. You know,
Yeah.
I every time you talk about life's ambushes, I try to mind General Mattis in his book Questing Chaos about when he talks about things being hard were never a good excuse for mission failure, and everything things get hard. You can prepare for sometimes they're more of a surprise than others, but hardship comes, life's ambushes will happen. But uh, you have to have that open mind because even in the midst of chaos, turmoil, hardship, even failure, there's a wealth of information, a wealth of knowledge. If you're willing to learn, and if you keep that open mind, you don't get stuck in the quagmire. You don't get stuck in the quicksand of the victim mentality.
Exactly. Yeah, no, great book. I have a lot of respect for General Mattis.
I did too. In fact, I think you have quotes from Admirals McRaven and McChrystal, or in Overcome.
In for the book.
Yeah, that's right. I remember right after leaving Walter Reed, I had to make a quick stop down in the VA hospital in Tampa. And one afternoon, I went out for lunch with my wife. Came back, and there was a box of toffee and a little note card, a note from Admiral Craven. Sorry, mister. Here's a little gift. Get better soon. Like, I can't believe I missed this guy. But, very respect those gentlemen very much, as well as General Mattis. So tell me, after recovery and after your injury recovery, you get out of Walter Reed. What do you do? You did attempt you did successfully get back to work. But
I did.
well, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I originally, after my injuries, I thought I could go back operational again. And that was kind of my goal. And for the first few years, that's what I tried to pursue. But unfortunately, my arm injury was too great. I can't bend my arm any further than 90 degrees. That's the most I can bend it. So it makes it really difficult to, grab any gear on the left side of my body. Even snapping my helmet is a little bit of a challenge. I got to kind of overextend to make that happen. So that kind of reached a conclusion that I wasn't going to be able to be operational again. But I came in the military to do 20 years. I told my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to do 20 years. When we get to 20 years, then if we feel like we're not having fun anymore and you tell me, I said she had the choice at 20. So she agreed. And that's what I told the SEAL teams. I said, hey, I may not be able to be operational, but what can I do? So they sent me to one of our commands, and I got to work there for the next 4 years. I worked as a operations officer for several years. I did training. I did special projects. I got to do a lot of really rewarding things. I mean, it wasn't operational anymore, but at least I was able to work with the community at a very high level and finish my career on my terms. So at about the 19 and a half year mark, I realized that, hey, in order to keep going, if I was to stay beyond 20, what would that look like? And the SEAL teams, we don't have a staff officer path. I needed to check operational billets in order to make rank. I could have made 04, so lieutenant commander for the Navy or major for the Army. But I never would have made higher than that. I would have been maxed out, because without those operational billets, I wouldn't have the things I needed to move up in rank.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started looking at that, I was like, okay, well, the reality is, you had a great career. They let you finish on your own terms. Maybe it's time to start looking at the civilian world. And so that's what we did. We started to look at that. It was about that time I had been writing since I got injured. When I couldn't talk, so I was trached for 7 months. So I had to write everything. I had to write about the firefight. I had to write about other missions. And then that just started to become, I've always liked to write. So that kind of became a little bit of therapy after surgeries. I would write. I wrote about Afghanistan. I wrote about my mistakes. So by the time I got to, probably, 19 years in my career, which was about 5 years after my injury, I had like 250 pages. And I let some friends read it, and they were like, man, this is really good. Books are a little bit of a double-edged sword in the SEAL teams. And I was at a command that I didn't want to be that guy who, just did a book. So our command master chief at that command was my old master chief from when I was wounded. And I took what I had written to him, and I said, hey, I was wondering if you'd look at this. I have a lot of people saying I should do something with it, but I don't want to do it. Here I was, I had screwed up in the SEAL teams, and they gave me a second chance to come back. I would never want to do anything to damage my reputation again. And he read it, and he said, this is really good. I'm going to send it to the commanding officer. Let's see what he says. So the CO read it. He said, this is good. We sent it up to our headquarters command, and they gave me the thumbs up. And that's how all my writing ultimately turned into the book, The Trident. And that kind of started a new path that I wasn't really planning on, because I started getting asked to speak. And I found out that, man, I really like this. I have created a lot of systems out of both failure and out of injury that have helped me be successful. And when I share these lessons with other people, they relate to them. They're like, hey, man, I failed. I have messed up. I have been injured. I have been on the X. And that kind of set this whole new path. I mean, I ran a nonprofit for Wounded Warriors for quite a few years, and that was rewarding. But ultimately, this became my new mission. And that's what led to, additional books. I'm excited to say that our fourth book will come out in 2025. My wife and I have been working on a relationship book, and we signed a deal with HarperCollins, so that'll come out. And I want to continue to motivate and inspire people to try and be the best version of themselves.
That's fantastic. I'm excited to hear about it. I was just thinking, you're talking about writing a book, and isn't that like a Navy NBC, like a sea school for SEALs book writing?
It's a requirement. Yeah. When you come out of a mission, that there's a debrief on, okay, we're done with the AAR. Okay, who's writing the book about this mission? Who's got the movie rights? It's actually part of the debrief.
You didn't want to damage your reputation.
That is not true, people.
Didn't want to damage your reputation by writing a book, but you almost lose credit points for not writing the book. But that's great. And in fact, there was a saying, I don't know where I heard it, but it's stuck in my head. I repeat it all the time, is that the story of your struggle, may someday be the blueprint for someone else's survival. And that it's been tattooed in my brain ever since. And if I can keep struggling and keep succeeding, and if I can keep doing the best I can, and then keep telling others that they can do so too, then I feel as though my efforts have so much more value, and my life is much more fulfilling. So I commend you on the books and the upcoming books. You didn't stop just there. You're speaking, and you're consulting and doing some coaching. You're coaching professional athletes, companies, doing all sorts of things. You're keeping pretty busy. And now,
I do stay pretty busy, man, and I think that's the secret. I mean, I'm I'm a proactive guy. I want to help people. It's taken me a while to figure out what my niche is in coaching, though. It took me a little while. And what I've come to figure out is my niche is helping people to take action. That has been my resounding um, trait. And action stems both from leadership and resilience. So we got to build up both of those in order for you to take action in your life. But you're never going to be successful if you don't take action. And there's a lot of people who want to do a lot of things. They want to be in shape. They want to make more money. They want to find the right spouse. They want to build a business. They want to write a book. They want to, you name it. There could be a million things, but without action, those things will never happen. And a lot of people are good at wishing and wanting, but they don't know how to take action. They don't know how to identify a goal, create a plan, and start taking steps to go after that plan. And that's what I am good at helping people do, and motivating them. And the reality is, so I like coaching people with that. I'm really excited. I have a free coaching group called the Overcome Army, and it is about action. As a matter of fact, I tell people when they come in the group, am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
That's fantastic. Tell me more about this Legacy Tribe coaching program.
Yeah, so Legacy Tribe is going to launch next month, and I'm honored to have partnered with Bedros Koulian and the CEO of his company, Fit Body Bootcamp, Bryce Henson. Bryce got, he's a rags to riches success story. Bedros is a rags to riches success story. And hell, I'm a rags to riches success story. My family was poor. And the three of us together are launching the Legacy Tribe. And it is for individuals who want to take their life to the next level. We want to help them be physically better, personally better, professionally better. And we're going to give you the tools to do that. Every week you will get a coaching call with one of us. And then the last coaching call of the month will be with high-level guest coaches. Between myself, Bryce, and Bedros, we know some of the top coaches, entrepreneurs, leaders across the industry. And these are the individuals that you'll get access to within this coaching group. So if any of you are interested in learning more about that, if you don't follow me yet, follow me on Instagram at Jason Redman WW, and I will be putting word out next month, because I tell you what, there's only going to be week-long open seasons to be able to join this group. So we will open up the ability for you to join in September, and you have 1 week, and then it'll close, and we won't open it up again until January. Every quarter, we'll open it for a week, because we want to manage who gets in there, and we want to build the strong culture of action within the group. And then, we that's our goal. So yeah, Legacy Tribe. It's about building a legacy in your life, personally, professionally, and physically.
That's excellent. Are there any other ways to follow you or connect with you, or should we just direct everybody right to Instagram?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. I put out videos at least weekly, if not multiple times a week. But I am definitely most active on Instagram. I also am running a couple of times a year. Next year, we'll do 3. I'm running survival and defense courses. So this is for the average everyday American. If you're a super high level prepper who all you ever do is shoot, I'm probably not the right guy for you. You probably want to go look for one of our higher level groups, maybe like my teammates, DJ Shipley and Cole Fackler with GPRS. But if you are the average everyday American and you are looking for, how do I survive if things go south? I want to be more comfortable with my gun. I want to know how to do first aid. We are running those courses. You can find that on my website under courses. It's called the Overcome and Survive Workshop. And I'm running those. Like I said, I got one coming up in October, and then we'll run 3 in 2024.
Okay. Well, as they say, links down below in the notes. And I really do appreciate, Jason, your time today, sharing your story, sharing all the amazing accomplishments you've done during your military career after injury, which you're up to today, and what's the next on the horizon. I wish you all the best. And one last joke. I thought it was hilarious that listening to you talk about writing because you couldn't talk, and I can't see, can't hear, so it's all output. So, and also thinking that you have this point when motivational daily planner, and I have such a hard time, jotting things down from a day to day, like building the habit of a daily journal.
Yeah.
But I appreciate it. I love what you're doing. Thanks for what you're doing for the community, and thanks for being on Point of Impact.
Aaron, my honor, man. Anytime. I appreciate you spreading that light, man. That's such a critical thing. Those of us who have been through the hardship, man, like you said, our struggles are somebody else's path forward. So, man, I love it. So I appreciate you having me on, brother. Much love.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, man. I'm out.